passed a joint. Every noise sounded like hush. Tom inhaled large quantities of smoke, and each time he exhaled, I thought of cold weather. His hair reached down to touch his neck, and it was streaked with remnants of peroxide 6 months old. His jaw swooped between both ears like a water slide, and his thoughts were mechanical. Tom released mechanical thoughts into the circle when he spoke, and they tumbled around slowly. Laura had brown hair like a waterfall and a smile like a magazine. It made me shiver, and I never really knew why, but I always smiled back. She was thin and beautiful, a wisp of smoke that shoots through green light. When she inhaled, she had a hard time holding it in, and she coughed a lot. We decided to walk down to the street, and all of us ran gently down the hill like a pack of dogs with dry mouths. There were no eyelids as we held ghost hands on the way. Cars muttered vibrations as they passed, flashing brightly and then dimming. I always feel like a bystander, a floating thing looking down at myself, submerged in a sphere of jelly, or something like that. I suggested that we crush them on the cement and insufflate. My shoulders glittered for an instant. We all kneeled down behind the gas station, and Laura pulled a bag of pills out of her backpack. Tom was the first one to lift his head up, sniffing wetly, and his left eye leaked tears as he blinked slow and firm like a wise dog. It took about 15 minutes for the blanket to cover us. When we felt it, we walked down the sidewalk and spoke light into each other's hearts, loving everything we touched. Every word possessed the softness of pillows and the warmth of forgetting, and Tom purred, looking me in the face. His eyes were brown and glazed like pudding. We finally made it to the parking lot and climbed into Tom's car. Laura clapped her hands together and said, "This is going to be a sick party." Tom told me he felt like his bones were melting together and ran a red light at 40 miles an hour, and the blue and red lights came skipping behind us. Tom said, "Fuck cops," and his bones cooled and congealed into a skeleton. We all briefly lost our composure. Palms got wetter and fingers clenched on fabric and leather. Laura's thoughts centered on her backpack full of drugs, and as the policeman walked up to the car, I wished that it would start raining. "Excuse me, son, do you know that you just ran a red light going 40 miles an hour?" Tom just stared back like a puppy on heroin. "Have you been doing any drinking tonight, son?" Again, Tom left his mannequin eyes on display. The policeman paused like he understood. "I'm going to have to ask you to step out of the vehicle, sir." Tom slowly opened the door and accepted the policeman's full body search as a massage. He closed his eyes and welcomed the stern hands to thrust into his pockets, to press and rub against his ribs, and just as he was nodding off with his head against the cold metal, he decided to run. His body jolted, sinewy and blushing, and the policeman grabbed the air. Tom sprinted across the road. He only got halfway, though, because his bones were crushed by a car that didn't slow down until after the impact. He was thrown up against the windshield so that the glass shattered in conjunction with his skull, the way that people paint each other's window panes by falling in love. Laura and I took the opportunity to get away while everybody was distracted. I looked at the cracks in the pavement and tried not to step on them. The leaves in the trees were like green ice cubes, dripping cold organs onto my skin. A heavy pulse started to beat in my lungs, and we ducked behind a building and leaned against the wall while we caught our breath. I looked at Laura and said, "That was a close call." She looked back at me and said, "I know." It was quiet. I saw a tear drop from the blackness of her cheek, and I opened my mouth to say something, but before I could speak, she shook her head violently and put her hand over my lips. She reached into her backpack and grabbed something, and then she smiled, and soon she was pressing her hips against me. I left my eyes open when we kissed. As she pulled her face away, she slowly placed the tablet in my mouth and then put one in hers, and we both laughed. We went to this big empty building that was surrounded by cement and other warehouses. Laura and I were dissected by colors. She said, "Just like the time we licked sunset off the river pane, I see splintered glass bones on the street. I see splintered. and I kept my hands in her pockets or her pants. It doesn't matter. Later on, we were sweaty and tired and sat down in plastic chairs near the wall. I closed my eyes and felt Laura's body next to me, whirring chemical riot. My eyes felt reversed, like I was looking inward and watching the gears grind. And I realized that I wanted to leave. When I opened my eyes, I decided to go see if I could find a bathroom. Laura was talking to some guy when she got back, and she asked me if I could hold on to her backpack while she went outside to smoke a cigarette. I said, sure. After she walked away, I left in a hurry, stumbling over tangled feet and rubbing my face against wet flesh. I wanted that backpack for myself. The hummingbird lights inside made everybody rush. Segments of luminous skin reminded me of love, careless patchwork, torn sugar packets. As I stepped outside of the warehouse, I retraced my steps back toward our heavy hill, and by now it was very late and they had cleaned Tom's brains off of the asphalt. I was glad that nobody saw me because I was alien and my tongue felt like sandpaper. I passed a woman taking her morning jog. She was dressed in lavender and her breathing was like a robot. I peeled the bag off of me, Laura, loving nothing and calming me with her kisses wearing off and my fingertips dripping, but I began to feel the iron eyes of day return it. Never lets me out of its sight. I had to climb back into the hole, the dark world where all the little visions, the big visions, sit at the bottom like holy sediment, but it was all gone, all the little bags were empty. The sun unveiled a morning sky that was filthy and dark, and I was hoping for soft of sunlight. The flowers were alive and blushing, but all their color was stifled by the weather. The clouds hung like parachutes slowly descending, and eventually I walked behind a building to puke, and I saw this scribbled on the bricks. What a boneyard this is. We are building hives with smoke and will not ask again that we be left to our alchemy. It all slowed down then. I felt something heavy and ugly growing inside of me, not puke. The desert, a resin-stained hollow jar. I say no, I'm okay leaking love colors all around. Made it back to the heavy hill and sat down alone. Didn't realize until then, but been biting my fingernails and my hand spotted with dry blood, smelled like pennies. Remember, like we licked a sun ray? We were laying here, chewing bubble gum, tapping out little rhythms with our mouths and the golden green star above us, pressing palms of warm noise across the field. Oscillating breath talk, hums that orbit us. I walked you halfway home, and you told me you'd make the rest by yourself because you liked it. The liquid day, turning diamond years around you. Remember, like we licked a sun ray? I'm writing this so that I don't lose too much, so that I can keep some of the short-lived incandescence, the little chemical fires that evaporate after I am done converging. I tried to calm myself by imagining dead Tom lying next to me, just looked over at the grass next to me and sobbed, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, while I rocked back and forth, pulling my hair. Thought about the time he introduced me to needles. I remember he kept saying, it's fine, leaking tangerines, light unglowing, softer to more soft. I am twisting doorknobs made of razors. It's fine. What if he had hovered just behind my back the whole night, trying to touch me? Had he caught my attention? I would like to believe that he would have just floated there, saying, it's fine, telling me my razor love is sick and needs repair. And now here I sit on the green flesh at the bottom of our heavy hill. There is a masked moonlight, a subtle gravity that brings me to this place. My rivers are dry now.